This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. And brought to you by Frames, absolutely the most elegant and thoughtful photographic journal I've seen since the legendary Aperture magazine founded more than half a century ago. If you want to elevate your photographic sensibilities, your education, check out Frames magazine and its online offering over at joinframes.com. And if you like what you see, use the discount code ELEVANT10 at checkout. I'll put links for Frames and Squarespace in the show notes below. Thanks, guys. Sony invited us to the launch event for their A1 Mark II in New York City and covered travel, food, and accommodations. They had no input to nor advanced preview of this video, however, and the views herein, as always, are absolutely my own. What can I possibly add to what has already been said about Sony's $6,500 flagship A1 Mark II? Glad you asked. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. Yes, I had Sony's A1 Mark II in hand ahead of embargo lift, and I did take my kind of images with it. I'm a street photographer and not the target audience. Like this. But I also checked out the speed and autofocus performance of the camera for motorsports. Yeah, that's a ticket, motorsports, like this. I didn't do a video on the A1 Mark II at launch because other people more appropriate to the task of using a flagship sports and wildlife camera had had it in hand far longer than I for use in a far more appropriate set of conditions, and I felt I needed more time to think through, reason through what it was that I had in my hands in order to add value to the conversation. Now, a month after the launch, I think I can, and I will just cut to the chase. Sony's A1 Mark II is the best camera Sony can make, A, at a price the company believes a sufficient number of buyers will pay, to B, allow it to meet the financial targets for it. End of story. There's no point getting worked up about what it doesn't have, what Sony didn't do, how much it costs, blah, 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 blah. That's business. And you either are the target audience for it and have the budget and inclination to buy it, or you're not. And you don't. Fair enough. There are far more important things to worry about, and the dirty little secret is that the best sports and wildlife photographers, best photojournalists, best event photographers, wedding photographers have done phenomenal things with far less capable and sophisticated gear. A better use of our time as photographers and videographers is figuring out the boundary between how good our gear has to be and how good we have to be. Hold that thought. What is unequivocal is that the Mark II is an amalgam of the A1 and the A9 III, carrying over the A1's sensor and positioning while inheriting the A9 III's body and dedicated AI chip. This is a good thing. You know that. It's the best body, in my estimation anyway, that Sony has ever made, including the up to 1 second pre-burst and 4-way articulating screen. It's a good thing that the A1 II has also inherited the dedicated AI chip of the A9 III for autofocusing, although this is the same chip and same articulating mechanism first found in the $3,500 A7R5, only then in the $6,000 A9 III. Although this means the A1 Mark II also inherits the full Sony DNA, which, I don't care what anybody says, still includes a menu system and manual of arms so complex that it is practically gaslighting anyone coming from any other system. Then again, Sony is not unique in this regard. The current state of complexity in the camera industry is just appalling, and especially less than endearing to those of us weaned on smartphones. If you need the A9 III's global shutter, or more specifically what it can do, most especially in the sports photographer's arms race, but hey, birders too, its 120 frames per second burst rate, don't get cranky that the A1 Mark II doesn't have it. Just go out, buy the A9 III and be happy. Get the longer lens to compensate for the lower resolution if you have to, but just get on with it. You'll have a higher hit rate based on luck than just about any other camera I can think of, but then again, luck has always played a role for those best prepared to grab it. If you're a high-end enthusiast of whatever predilection and already have the original A1, you should probably just stick with it. Possibly even trade down to something like an A7R5 used at that. But if you want the latest new and shiny, who am I to tell you otherwise? Then again, even if you're the highest-end pro sports shooter, wildlife shooter, photojournalist, or combat photographer, maybe especially so in that case, who's to say that the shot you got at 120 frames per second couldn't have been captured at 30 frames per second either by you or someone else? Saturday, July 13th, 2024 in Pennsylvania, anyone? If you're already an A1 shooter of any stripe, have an itch to buy something that you think will give you a higher likelihood of getting the shot you want or need, but you don't need any of the things I've just mentioned, be happy with the A1 you've already got. Save yourself $1,500 for a second OG A1 new if you must, or maybe save a whole lot more than that by complementing your A1 differently with an A7R5, A7CR, or if you can wait, maybe see what the rumored A7 V brings to save even more. Or else buy another lens, or a completely different kind of camera, just for your personal work. And that is that. Except not really, because there are larger issues to consider. If you think you really need all that an A1 or A1 Mark II can give you, you have to ask yourself, 1, do you really? 2, are you really willing to take the time to truly master it? Out on the streets of New York, this is what the A1 Mark II made clearest to me. Most of us are not, because the combinations and permutations of what it can do are so overwhelming and so poorly laid out from the perspective of a practitioner that even Sony itself won't take on the job of explaining all of them, not even a small fraction of them. Although, fair enough, this is true with almost all modern cameras and camera companies. It's more akin to, here, you figure it out and let us know. We just threw everything we could at it to justify the price. And that is what you're going to have to do. Go through the entire spec list on your own and watch a ton of videos because no one, and I mean no one, gets all of the specs right. It's then up to you to figure out which ones you must have that you cannot get anywhere else, or anywhere else as nicely, efficiently, effectively. You get the idea. No reviewer can do that for you. You're the only one who knows you. 3, even if you are the rare exception, are you the rare exception who truly wants the very best of both worlds, stills and video, in a single camera? Because if that's who you are, you may end up disappointed one way or the other. Are you really, for example, the high-end pro sports photographer who will switch mid-inning from stills to 16-bit raw video via HDMI out and then use the Ethernet port or 5 GHz MIMO 5 wireless to get the footage and shots back to the office where a team of editors and colorists are waiting to work on both immediately to hit deadline? If you think you are, okay, but, oh, by the way, what recorder will you use to capture that 16-bit raw stream? Just asking. Maybe your answer will be different if you're a combat photographer or photojournalist, possibly a Nat Geo wildlife photographer living on the tundra or in the desert for weeks on end. But maybe it won't. Because you also have to ask yourself, what is the best of both worlds? If you're bringing even 12-bit RAW into the field, do you have that colorist and editor waiting on the other end of the cloud to do their thing even before you're back from the field? Are you going to do it yourself? Are you willing to switch from stills to video, confident that you won't miss the moment in that liminal space between modes? If you're in the field shooting 12-bit RAW because you need that kind of image quality, do you really want to futz with screw-on filters? Or would you prefer a variable electronic internal neutral density filter? If you're shooting in the jungle, in the desert, an outdoor wedding in Miami in the summer, do you want to risk camera overheating, or would you prefer a camera with active cooling? If you want to switch quickly from 24p to 120p, do you want to forego shutter angle even though it eliminates one obvious possible source of error in the heat of the moment, no pun intended but recognized? Because in all of these cases, Sony's own $6,000 FX6 would have you better covered. That's a dedicated video camera. Of course, were you to go with the FX6, no IBIS for you. Just saying. If you're not already an A1 shooter, but still in the Sony fold, and you're looking at the A1 II, you have to ask yourself these questions. 1. What precisely can't you do with your current Sony camera, A7 whatever, A9 whatever, that you think you can, need, and must do with the A1 Mark II in particular? 2. If you're coming from Nikon, same question, especially if you already have the Z8 or Z9, both far less expensive than the A1 Mark II, with a lens ecosystem every bit as good. Is it worth the pain of leaving your Nikon glass and muscle memory behind? If you're coming from Canon, well, same questions except A, forget about the R1 or R3 because they don't have the megapixel count. But B, you do have the 45 megapixel option of the R5 II, also much less expensive than the A1 Mark II. 4. If you're coming from Panasonic or Fujifilm's world of APS-C, there are clearly more compelling reasons to make the switch because of what they don't offer. But the questions remain the same with one additional question. When? Because it seems to me both companies are due, especially Panasonic, for something new. And again, neither company has evinced any particular interest in competing directly with full-frame flagship cameras that I can see. I'm going to recap it. That's where we are. In the end, the A1 Mark II is still a tour de force. It is the state-of-the-art camera Sony is willing to sell. That alone still makes it extraordinary, absolutely first tier. But in order to use all of its capabilities, you have to need all of its capabilities. And even at far less than full throttle, the amount of time and effort one must invest to master the A1 Mark II is extraordinary. The reality is that most of us don't need all of its capabilities. Very few of us are willing to make that effort to thoroughly understand any of our cameras. And there are very credible, far less expensive options. Clearly, the industry has reached a technological asymptote, and this has allowed other camera manufacturers time to dramatically narrow the gap with Sony. No camera is truly master of everything, and those less expensive and credible alternatives include Nikon's $3,500 Z8 and $5,000 Z9, Canon's $4,300 R5 II, and Sony's own, and now $1,500 less than it was a couple of months ago, $5,000 original A1 and $6,000 A9 III. But it also makes sense to determine if one camera to do it all makes sense for you, as I've just laid out. Here at Three Blind Men and an Elephant, we do not usually use a single camera to do it all. I rely primarily on Leica and Hasselblad gear for my personal street work. Claudia now relies on her Sony A7 CR for her personal street work. And we rely on a trio of Lumix S5 IIs for our professional video work. Active cooling, great video functionality, and operational ease of use at the resolutions and frame rates that matter to us for well under 2,000 a pop, plus shutter angle and a superb selection of glass. Hallelujah. We do, however, both use single Sony cameras, Claudia's A7 CR and my A7 R5, in those instances where we need to travel light, share lenses, and know we will be mixing personal work with occasional short-form video for the channel. The reality in all of this, as in most industries, is that marketing is ever increasingly all about specs. The result is that too many of us have become mad speculators, focusing far more on the what than the how or why of things, and therefore getting upset with the wrong things anyway. At this point, for example, Claudia and I have more than we need on the basis of our gear's features and performance. But I do wish I could find a camera system with everything my current systems already give me in an even lighter total package that I can also manipulate easily with gloves on, warm enough to actually prevent me from losing all feeling in my fingers. But hey, that's just me. Your mileage may vary. And I'm just a street photographer anyway. What do you think? This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, join the conversation in the comment section below because this is an exceptional audience. If you'd like help with a portfolio review, gear selection, finding or honing your artistic voice, sign up for a one-on-one mentoring video call via Zoom at 3bmep.com/booking. Finally, please consider supporting our work by using the no-cost-to-you affiliate links down below, sending us coffee money via PayPal, or most especially, joining us on Patreon, links down below as well. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.